Maestro Leonard Bernstein celebrated his 70th birthday. Happy birthday, dear Leonard. And it almost had to be at Tanglewood, because that's where Leonard Bernstein spent most of his summers. And Tanglewood, I know, is a very special place to you, too, here.
One of my favorite things to do. It really is a magic setting. It's cherished by many of the world's finest musicians who perform, they teach, they learn. And in the process, they entertain music lovers from all over the country. And for years, I've wanted to share the story and the history of Tanglewood with you. Watch.
Tanglewood is one of the great schools, one of the great educational entities in the world. And unique.
It started as a simple idea for a few summer concerts under the stars in a rural corner of Massachusetts called the Berkshires. From those first few performances on a country farm, it has grown into one of the most influential centers of music in America. All because of one man's dream. Serge Koussevitzky, the legendary Russian-born conductor. When he brought his world-class orchestra, the Boston Symphony, to Tanglewood in 1936, the Berkshires and the music world were never the same again.
Koussevitzky was a great man. Koussevitzky was love. Koussevitzky was warmth. His presence was something extraordinary. He had dreamed this dream of Tanglewood for years and years and years.
Koussevitzky's dream was to combine a prestigious music festival with a superb school, a place where the world's finest musicians would do more than perform. They would teach. They would pass on their knowledge to the next generation. And when a wealthy Boston family donated a 210-acre estate called Tanglewood, Koussevitzky's vision became reality. But he couldn't raise enough money for a proper concert hall. All he could afford to build was an open-sided shed. The name stuck. And that's what it's been known as ever since, the Shed. Very little has changed at Tanglewood in 50 years. The 5,000-seat shed remains almost exactly as it was built. The setting remains as pristine as when Koussevitzky first saw it. But now those few summer weekends have expanded to an 8-week season. Every year, over 300,000 people come to hear the music of the Boston Symphony under the direction of Seiji Ozawa. There are a number of ways to enjoy Tanglewood. It's somewhat different from the usual concert experience. One way, of course, is simply to buy a ticket and sit here in the shed. Or, for $1,200 a year, you can join the Koussevitzky Society, which entitles you to a pre-concert dinner at Serge Koussevitzky's mansion, Saranac, complete with candlelight on the veranda and spectacular views of the Berkshires. But for most of the 35,000 people who come to Tanglewood each weekend, the pre-concert dinner means this: a picnic on the Great Lawn. And people bring anything from tuna fish salad sandwiches to gourmet spreads. And then sitting back or lying back and listening to the music, surrounded by the trees and the sky.
I'm going to have a chef salad. All right,
I'll have a chef salad. Like that's yours.
Where did this come
That's
from?
shrimp. Who wants shrimp?
Ooh, does that
Got
look
your
delicious?
shrimp.
What did you do with that?
The next year, Tanglewood.
Right.
Good health.
just...
Don't stop with the potato.
Next year, then 4 years, then next year together.
Next year, Tanglewood.
Right.
Good health.
On most Saturday mornings, Tanglewood features something I particularly like: open rehearsal for the next day's concert. You can listen to what amounts to a full performance, as I did recently when the great Soviet pianist Vladimir Feltsman was rehearsing for his Tanglewood debut.
It's a very famous place with very meaningful. It was Maestro Kusevitsky who started all. So, and I heard a lot about it, that it is one of the best summer places for making music in this country. So I'm very honored and pleased that I will play here.
But Tanglewood is not just about great concerts by great artists such as Vladimir Feltsman. As Kusevitsky dreamed a half-century ago, Tanglewood is also about nurturing young musicians like 30-year-old Marin Alsop. Just starting her professional career, Marin is one of 5 conducting fellows who survived very tough auditions to study at Tanglewood. In fact, Marin applied 4 times before she was accepted.
I wanted to come to Tanglewood as a conductor more than going anywhere else in the world, because the reputation here is fantastic. It's supposed to be just the best learning experience a conductor can have. This is a place of tradition and history, and I mean, even the grass sort of exudes tradition and greatness. You know, you feel part of it. It's a wonderful experience.
Tanglewood doesn't look like a traditional music school. There are no school buildings. There are no rows of desks. Here, the lawn is the classroom.
There's something infinitely touching about walking around Tanglewood, and from every doorway, from every window, from every shed, from every auditorium, you hear the sounds of people practicing music. And these sounds intermingle as you walk across all those lawns, and there's nothing like it. It's a very, very great place. I think it's the best music school in the world.
Yeah, clear. Other thing is, I want you to conduct from, how you say?
Center.
Guts. This G, beginning. And then I don't want you to do, you know, the sharp beat you use. I think that's wrong.
Tanglewood's different from every place else because they're not looking for how much flash you show.
More feeling.
They're really looking for what's in your soul.
Not, you know, that way.
This year, 1,200 students applied from 10 countries for the 102 spots that make up a full student orchestra. Their ages range from 18 to 34. They are no ordinary students. All are accomplished young musicians who come prepared for 8 weeks of concentrated study under the eyes of the world's greatest musicians.
To me, teaching is like almost dangerous. Dangerous means like a drug, almost. Yeah. You know, when it's like
That's an absolutely joyful thing. It's like watching myself, you know.
Ozawa should know. In 1960, he stood in the same place as Marin as a young conducting student. An amazing 30% of America's symphony orchestra players and many of the world's top soloists and conductors have studied at Tanglewood. The list runs from Leonard Bernstein to trumpeter Wynton Marsalis to Zubin Mehta. What was the most important thing you learned?
You know, it's a very, very good summer for me. One important thing, I had a shock, almost like a cultural, musical shock, that how less I know about music.
And during his first summer at Tanglewood, a 22-year-old Leonard Bernstein conducted publicly for the first time.
I was scared out of my wits. I remember sitting in a bush somewhere to be away from everybody with the score. And I can attribute the fact that I got through it at all only to the extraordinary kindness, warmth, and almost mystical involvement that Koussevitzky had with A, music, but B, with this whole new thing in his life, which was teaching.
Tanglewood's past is its future. What Koussevitzky was to Bernstein, Bernstein was to Ozawa, and Ozawa will be to the artists of the future. This summer, the continuity that has distinguished Tanglewood for more than 50 years was never more apparent than when Seiji Ozawa stood at Koussevitzky's place at the podium to rededicate the shed in his honor to the man who dreamed a musical dream and who opened up a rural corner of Massachusetts called the Berkshires to all who would dream with him.
I can remember when I was a kid, you know, being from Massachusetts, being in a sleeping, you know, blanket at night under the stars. Ah, wonderful. Nice to see that there are some female conductors now. There weren't too many.
It's been very male-dominated, but you know, 3 of the 5 conducting fellows at Tanglewood this summer were women, and our student Marin Alsop was chosen to conduct with Bernstein. I think it's possible the next generation may see some of the conducting superstars will be women.
Shouldn't call them fellows.
High time. What is the female of fellows? I can't think what it would be.
But you know, it's not just Tanglewood. There are places that are similar that have wonderful orchestras and musical groups like Aspen, Colorado.
And Ravinia and so forth. They can have a lot bigger audiences than, you know, no concert hall can handle over 18,000 people, which Tanglewood can. It's a great place.
Just a pleasure.
Thank you.
I'm glad you brought this to us, your own